Brodes Media.
What is going on, everyone? A tough loss for the 76ers. We'll talk about it all. Before we do, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. I really appreciate all the support. I love you guys so much. Smash that thumbs up button, too. And real quickly, if you're looking to buy tickets to go to any NBA game, NFL game, NHL game, I almost threw MLB at you, but the season has not started yet, unfortunately. You know me, I'm ready for the next 162. But anyway, I digress. You can utilize the promo code BRODES at SeatGeek's checkout page for $20 off of your tickets. It is a no-brainer. You would be foolish to not utilize that. You're eliminating the fees right from the jump. Promo code BRODES, SeatGeek's checkout page. That's simple. Thank you so much and enjoy the show. What is going on, everyone? Welcome on into Sports Talk with Brodes. The Sixers lose their fourth straight game, and yes, this is not great, okay? But this is what happens when you get hit with COVID, and Joel Embiid is unavailable. Tobias Harris has to work himself back in. Matisse Thybulle is unavailable. Ben Simmons isn't showing up, so you are losing a ton in your defensive perspective, and that's why when you think about how this game started off against the Pacers, you're getting annihilated, wide open threes, Sabonis is knocking down shots, Holiday is having an absolute dominant effort to start things off and doesn't miss anything if his life depended on it. So, you know, like, there's a reason why. And it's not an excuse. It's just reality of the situation. It is very difficult to win under these circumstances. And it's not as simple as just Ben. This is more than, hey, you just don't have Ben Simmons. This is a product of COVID really hitting your team and having guys unavailable for so long. And it's a big snowball effect that, yeah, it's hard. It's hard to win when this is what you are dealt. Now, no one's gonna feel sorry for you. No one's gonna feel bad for you in terms of looking at the standings each night. You have to find a way to grind out wins and win some basketball games, and you're on the road here. It's only gonna get harder. You're only gonna have to dig deeper and really come together as one and show some toughness here. No one's gonna feel bad for you. They're gonna come out with the killer mentality and try and take you down regardless of who you have out there on the court. And hell, if you're the New York Knicks, you're gonna celebrate as if you won the NBA title, but that just defines and shows you how these other teams are going to play regardless. So you have to really find internally a way to kind of flip the script here and come out on top. Now, I didn't want to dive 1 minute and 45 seconds in without mentioning right from the jump that the news of Dave Joerger is very sad. You know, I mean, look, it seems that they caught it early on, and there's a really good chance for him to overcome this, which is a positive sign. But ultimately, he has to take a step away from the team, and it's very sad. And the city of Philadelphia is supporting him. My thoughts and my prayers go to him and his family and everybody in his inner circle that is going to be going through all of this with him. And the whole basketball world is supporting him as well. So I just want to send my condolences. When I heard Doc Rivers say that on the postgame show, my heart just sunk into my stomach, and I couldn't believe it. It was just very sad, disappointing, devastating news. So my prayers go to him and his family throughout this time in his life where it's going to be a lot of emotions, I'm sure. And like I said, it seems like they caught it early, which is a positive sign. But still, you go through something like this, it is not an easy thing to do. So prayers to the family and him while he goes through this time in his life. So transitioning back to what we witnessed in this basketball game, I used the word transition. I think that's where we begin. That transition defense was just absolutely putrid. It didn't help. You threw the ball right into Miles Turner a billion times. You had some sloppy turnovers with Danny Green and Shake Milton having some ugly ones early on. 16-4 run. And by the way, it's not as if this Pacers squad is fantastic in transition. It would make sense if you're down all those guys and then the team you're playing is maybe top 5 in transition offense and they get out and they're able to push the pace to this electric degree. But that's not the case. I saw Derek Bodner of The Athletic tweet out that they're sitting in that 30th. They're 30th in transition offense. This Pacers team should not be able to run that way with you, but that's what happens when you're not getting back. It was bad. It was really bad. Wide open looks. I'm watching Furkan look like he's on ice skates out there. He's getting lost, and he's getting waxed defensively. Shame on me. I knew it. I know. I normally don't do that, but Furkan was balling so much, and Ben Simmons made me sick so much that I thought to myself, I got to at least praise the kid for maximizing his skill set because I'm pissed off at Ben for not, right? That was my mentality. I mean, come on. Here we have Furkan throwing up nonsense and getting toasted, which I expect majority of the time. And look, I say this, and he's going to come out. And I don't think he's this horrendous when he's shooting around 17%. Heading into this night, he was shooting 17.2% over his last handful of games. I don't think he's that garbage. I don't think he's that awful, but you're seeing signs of why I always bitch and complain about what he does out there. He's getting annihilated and toasted on the defensive side of the floor. The team's having issues all around in that area. Yeah, Drummond having a difficult decision to make when it comes to defending the roller or when they're running some other action. He's not set out to be a starting caliber guy. And I think it's kind of hysterical that at the end of this game, a lot of people were just pissed off with Doc Rivers for the way that he handled some late-game possessions. And I'll be honest, it probably shouldn't have even been as close as it was. I kept looking up and looking at the score, I should say 10-point game, 10-point game, 10-point game. How is this a 10-point game? And then you cut it to 5. How in the world is this a 5-point game? Well, if you look at the box score, you see some guys scored. Tobias Harris finished with 32 points. He was 10 of 22. He had 11 rebounds as well. Tyrese Maxey got in there 10 of 15 for 24 points. I thought he had some costly fouls, though, where he bailed out the Pacers, and that's something he's going to have to learn not to do. That cannot happen in those areas. He didn't get to the free throw line to look at it the other way as much as I would have liked for him to do. That's something that I'm consistently going to watch. How does he learn to properly get himself and establish himself to get to that line and get the referees to call that when he's being aggressive? I thought, early on, maybe the ball didn't find him as much, but also Tobias Harris was really taking the ball and saying, hey, I'm going to get you some points. I'm going to take a three-pointer in transition. I'm going to take it to the rack and kiss it off the glass. I thought Toby was very strong, but getting back to my point of where Doc Rivers was, I should say where the fans were, some fans were towards Doc Rivers after the game, it was this mentality of, it was all his fault for playing Tobias Harris with isolation ball. One, that's what this league is all about in late game moments. Legitimately good teams have what? They have an isolation guy and they say, go score me points. We've been through this a billion times. Now, if we know when this team was fully intact last year, Ben, Joel, Tobias, and we talked about Tobias being the Robin, and we wondered, can he fully be the Robin? We don't even know, right? So we question if he's Robin or maybe even the third piece. So why would you be upset if he wasn't necessarily coming up clutch late with all of these massive shots when he started the game that way? And I guess what I'm trying to bring up is, while Doc Rivers, then why would Doc go to him? Who are you going to in those moments? Seth Curry, who had an awful night, 3 of 10. Furkan Korkmaz, Niang, who had an awful night, who could not find his rhythm. Who are you going to? Then, of course, I'm probably waiting for everybody right now listening to scream Tyrese Maxey at me. Okay, but then come on. I mean, to act as if that's like a no-brainer, automatic, you're winning that basketball game with Tyrese Maxey playing isolation ball and going to score you buckets at will nonstop. No, you can't get a stop on the other end. Although, it's interesting. They did go through a little spurt of not being able to score a field goal. The Pacers did, but then when T.J. McConnell started to penetrate and put the ball on the floor, dribble a couple times, not in any epic way or elite way, but just nonchalantly, and then goes to the basket, he gets some massive points. My point, though, is with what hand you're dealt right now, saying Tobias, go get me some buckets late, well, sure, did it get stagnant a little bit? Yeah, I'm with you. I'm not telling you that it was like the best game plan in the history of the world ever, but Tobias Harris had some open looks. And Tobias Harris missed those open looks. Missed a couple bunnies late, probably running out of gas. Remember, he is just coming back from the COVID-19 list, and he did get impacted, and he did have symptoms. All I'm saying is, to demand Drummond, Seth Curry, Furkan Korkmaz, Niang, or anybody else to have the options there late, and Maxey is what he is. I'm not putting the whole entire eggs in my basket on him every game late. and say, well, that was the obvious, and Doc Rivers is dumb for not doing it. I can't go there. I can't. But to credit Maxey, I thought he made some strong passes, specifically very early. And by the way, he played 43 minutes and only had one turnover once again. He only finished with 3 assists, but I thought he did make some strong passes that, with him, it's more, you're really emphasizing the little things. He could have an awful game but make 2 great passes in the second quarter that led to nice assists, and you're going to highlight that more than you would, let's say, if you're watching Joel Embiid because, we're really, really studying the growth of what this young kid is all about. Downhill, he's attacking strong. It's just a magnificent watch out of him. And while it might not be the 30-point performance, we can't overlook what 10 of 15 is with 24 points. Just stings at times, the poor fouling happened and all, but it's all work in progress with him. And another statement I'm hearing all over the place is, Seth Curry stinks without Joel. Oh, wait, you're telling me this team's not as good without Joel than it is with? You're telling me a 2-man game between a shooter and Seth Curry, who has his flaws defensively and look, he can create off the bounce, but, you need a big man to help you out with some of this 2-man game, and you're telling me that Seth Curry isn't as strong without Joel? I mean, this is all rocket science stuff, so this is why when I said the team could win without Ben, but with Joel and Tobias and healthy in regular season games, I stand by that, but that's not what's happening right now. This is a totally different scenario that we have to play out at this moment, and it's tough. It's not easy at all. I'm disappointed with some of the takes early, with Miles Turner, with all those blocks, and then just not getting back. It's all about that work ethic. Get back in transition. The game was lost early on, and you just put yourself in such a big hole early that it was very difficult to dig yourselves out of. And when you finally did, think about it. If you didn't put yourself in that hole, what does that mean while you see that they cut it to 5 late? Is it a totally different scenario? Yeah, I'd imagine so. And, some people chalk it up to it was their night, right? Indiana, they couldn't miss. They would not stop making their shots. And sometimes you tip your cap and you admire that they're lethal weapons that night. There's something about the rhythm that they have, the ball movement, swinging it around, and that's what they were doing, right? They were getting a ton of assists. They were knocking down their shots. Sometimes you tip your cap to the other team and say there's nothing you can do. But the difference here is I do that when I can respect the Sixers' defense, and then I can respect the shots being made. The Sixers, nothing they can do. The Sixers are playing fine D, and the other team is just answering because elite offense beats elite defense. Good offense beats good defense. That's how this game works. But what you're doing is giving them wide open opportunities, wide open looks, and they're just sitting there in the corner, and Austin Holiday's wide open, and Sabonis is wide open. How? How can that effectively keep happening? Well, you're trotting out guys like Seth, who's bad defensively. You're trotting out guys like Furkan, who's bad defensively, and you don't have the counter. You don't have the rock behind you in Joel. You don't have Matisse Thybulle that can help out tremendously in that area. This is not the same game if you have Joel and Matisse Thybulle out there. I'll leave Ben to the side right now because that's inevitable. But Matisse and Joel add such a different layer and such a different level of intensity there where you can hide some of your flaws on that side of the floor, I should say. Now, speaking of Danny Green, oh, man, here we go again with him, and it looks like the hammy. As soon as he made that nice bucket, he looked over the bench. He started calling someone over like, hey, we got to get myself checked out there. It would just be damaging if he's unavailable. Say what you want about him. Say how much you hate him. Say how much you can't stand the guy. I thought he made some decent buckets today throughout, and I'm not telling you I love his game. I'm just saying, based off of, I guess the bar is set very low for him to this point. But with Danny, you need bodies. You need legitimate bodies. I'm not telling you he's been the greatest in the world. But right now, you are extremely depleted, and you're trying to keep your head above water. You went from 8-2 to now you're 8-6. And you got to make sure, you keep your head above the water. That's the opportunity you have in front of yourself here. Your realistic expectations is you can't fall apart. And this goes to, and sometimes your skill level is what it is out there, but it goes to Doc Rivers to try and mold this the best of his ability. Not going to get any easier. You're on the road. You're hitting West Coast games. We're talking about 10 o'clock, 9 o'clock starts. What do they have next week? I think it's Tuesday and Thursday because it's the good old double Flyers, double Sixers. You have the Utah Jazz on Tuesday night at 10. You have the Nuggets Thursday night at 9 a.m. in Denver. And then you got Portland on Saturday night at 10 p.m. So you got some tough games here. And it continues. Sacramento on that following Monday. There's another one. Warriors on that Wednesday, the 24th. Got to squeak out a win. I don't care if it's the ugliest win in the world. Something to stop the bleeding, though. That's the mission. That's what you have to accomplish here. That's the goal. You need to stop the bleeding. It could be horrendous. It could be awful. Hell, it could be because the other team just didn't have it that night. You didn't either. But somehow, some way, at the end of the night, the scoreboard reads 76ers, more points than the opponent. Something has to happen here. So let's see. Let's see if they can dig down deep. Okay, we're going to get to some anytime hotline calls. There were a lot of people that called in about the Ben Simmons, Rich Paul thing. And what I made clear was, while it is a frustrating topic and it's annoying that we're here, make sure we don't go overboard on what we're saying here. We're passionate. We care. We're upset about Ben and the way things are handled. I would allow your calls to be brought onto the anytime hotline. Just be respectful. Now, you can state your opinion, and I've made my opinion very clear, so you can take certain angles here, but there's a line, and do not cross the line. And I'm looking forward to hearing what the people had to say about Ben Simmons and the Sixers team and where they're at right now as it is. We'll get to that in 1 minute. But first, let me tell you about WinView. Are you tired of getting fleeced by the house? Are you tired of spending time researching players and teams only to end up short? Welcome to WinView. WinView is the only app where skill elevates you over the competition and into your money. Forget about spreads, salary caps, and over-unders. All you need to do is answer questions about the game that you love. They have a fantastic bonus happening right now. They will double your deposit bonus up to $100 for all first-time users. Your first deposit will be doubled up to $100. That means if you deposit and spend $50, you'll get $100. If you deposit and spend $100, you'll get $200. This is the perfect bonus to take advantage of during the NBA, NHL, NFL season. All you need to do is answer questions about the games that you're watching. I'm more addicted to this than I am TikTok right now. I am not lying. And guess what? I'm cashing in, and there's a lot of cash going into my pockets, and I'm stoked. I get to spend it on my shopping addiction, buying shoes, buying clothes, buying tattoos. It's nonstop. You should check it out as well. The information's down below in the description. WinView.tv/Brodes. Okay. Here we go. Anytime hotline. Let's start it off. Let's hear from you.
Hey, Brodes, what's up? So, in regards to Ben Simmons and all that stuff, Rich Paul has just been the absolute worst agent I could think of. Rich Paul didn't realize that you could get away with these tactics in small market teams like a New Orleans or an OKC or what have you. But you cannot do this in a large market like a Philadelphia, or even a Boston. I mean, you just can't do it. We're not New Orleans. We're not, Memphis or what have you. And he thought that, hey, I've done it in these other small markets. What's Philly? And he's seeing that not only is Philly one of the larger markets in the country, but it's a very visible and vocal market. You got sports radio. I mean, Philly's always in the news for one thing or another. And it's biting him in the ass now, him and Ben Simmons.
It's an interesting thought. I will say this, though, just to counter a little bit. I do believe you're onto something when you say that maybe different markets would do differently, and in the way that it's covered and the reaction and maybe even the way the general managers handle things, because, well, sometimes some of these other markets that do not have a lot of success, like a New Orleans and all, well, they're not ran properly, right? So they might make irrational knee-jerk reactions compared to a Daryl Morey, and these type of Daryl Moreys, they're in these bigger markets for a reason because, well, we hold our teams to a higher standard. The contract is the big deal here, where if you're in if you're specifically bringing up Anthony Davis, for example, when you have 1 year left on your deal and the Pelicans know that they're not going to be able to resign him, it's I need something in return, and we'll get him out of town. That's fine. We'll send him where you want. But they know that at the end of the year, he's not a part of that organization. They got to get something back in return. Why this is different at this moment compared to that is because of the contract, the 4 years left on the deal. So that just throws a different wrench in there. Now, Tyrone Johnson and I were talking about this morning, every Saturday morning from Bet Rivers Casino in Philly, the Tyrone Johnson show, and myself from 9 a.m. to noon. It's always fun. And we discussed it about, like, is this somehow, because we always thought, and he was even hearing, that Ben was handling this like such a baby in the beginning with everything and not showing up and this and that and going to practice, that Rich Paul was in a position to protect his brand so much that he would go through whatever Ben Simmons wanted to do because he needed to protect Clutch Sports and the image that was, even if he didn't necessarily agree with what Ben thought. Is it possible, we threw this out to the people, is it possible that Rich Paul is actually saying, Ben, look, maybe, is it possible that Ben Simmons says, Rich, I have some mental health issues. We got to go through this road. He's like, no. Let's play it my way first. We'll get you out of town. I did it with Anthony Davis. I did it with some other guys. Just work with me here. And maybe this is all Rich Paul. Now, I don't know, right? That seems, maybe in my eyes, in my opinion, that seems to probably be a smaller percentage than the original, because the way Ben Simmons is, he's been babied, he's been grown up where he's the prince, he's the guy, no one's ever told him anything wrong, where I don't think he felt like anything was wrong for the longest time, and he would never admit it. That's not his personality. I can't imagine him ever admitting it to Rich Paul, so I could probably see it being the first option, which is what I thought all along. But I have to raise the question, at least bring it up to see, does it make sense? Is there logic behind it? And sure, it's not impossible by any means. And what they did, I think at this point it's a combination of both, where Ben Simmons made extremely poor decisions early, and then now Rich Paul, to try and support those poor decisions, is making a poor decision also, and now it's just a combination of all things, to say and basically make a statement of, you're saying you don't believe Ben, let's get him help, or what are you saying? You're lying? It was full desperation. I think their walls are coming up. Their defensive mechanisms is really on display on how they're trying to approach things, and it's going to get ugly. It's going to continue to get ugly. I don't see it stopping anytime soon. What's next?
Hey, what's up, bros, man? I'm talking about this Ben Simmons thing with Rich Paul. Rich Paul basically, playing the game with Morey, and Morey playing the game with Ben Simmons is an ego thing. They both being stubborn. Like, my thing is, Morey should just get rid of Ben Simmons. Like I said before, he don't want to play for Philly because of the fans. But at the end of the day, though, he really don't want to play basketball because of the fans everywhere. So at the end of the day, though, he acts like if he goes somewhere else, he's not going to be criticized. He's going to be criticized no matter where he go. It's going to be even worse now. You got people at the foul line shooting foul lines. They're like, "Where's Ben Simmons? Where's Ben Simmons?" So you mean to tell me when he played basketball for somewhere else that nobody is not going to be heck on him? So at the end of the day, just let that man go. And Murray draw him, because at the end of the day, we good enough to be good. We just need a couple more pieces. I don't care who we get, and we'll be all right.
Yeah, see, that's the difference, though, when you say that is you have, like, you're right, you need a couple more pieces. Where are you getting those pieces? You get them with the Ben Simmons trade. That's where you get those pieces. Or that piece, you need you say pieces, well, sure, they're not just one piece away. You need a legitimate stud to pair up with Joel Embiid. And the only way to get that legitimate stud is by using Ben Simmons to get that compensation in return. So you can't just give him away. Daryl Morey's not in the wrong. Ben Simmons signed a contract, and he said, I will be here for X amount of years, and I will be getting paid this much money to be here in Philly. So it's not Daryl Morey. Like, this is what they want them to do. This is what they want the narrative to be. Oh, Daryl Morey's not trading. Like, no, that's what Rich Paul and Ben Simmons want. It's not Daryl Morey's fault. This is not Daryl Morey. This is 1,000% Ben Simmons and Rich Paul just trying to get what they want, and they're wrong. They're wrong. You can't just pass up on a possible trade down the road for Ben just because Ben and Rich Paul won out that badly. That's bad business. That's what bad general managers do. That's how you lose a job. They say it all the time. If you're gonna think like a fan and act like a fan and listen to the fans, you're gonna be in the seat with the fans. It's tough. It's not easy. It's hard. There's a lot of noise. There's a lot of drama. There's a lot of chatter. There's a lot of opinions, but at the end of the day, the best thing for the 76ers for the long term of trying to reach your ultimate goal, and it might be hard for some to see this right now through the trees and through the forest, but it's to keep Ben Simmons until you get the reasonable compensation in return. And before you scream back, well, you're not getting all these pieces that Morey's asking for, he knows that, we know that. It's part of the negotiations. It's part of the journey on getting what you would be satisfied with. Coming extremely high, so when you start to counter and you start to negotiate with teams, it comes down from there, but it's still high relative to what you're trying to get. He's playing it fine, in my opinion. He's playing it the right way, in my opinion. Ben Simmons signed the contract. That's on him. And because he's all upset and whining and crying, I can't feel sorry for him when he made the decision. Accountability. It's you reacted this way. You signed the contract. That was your reaction to getting that offer. Your reaction was, I'm signing it. Well, I hate to break it to you. You signed it. You're in this position because of your actions. You're right, though. Now the noise is so damn high. Wherever he goes, it's going to be extremely horrendous, and I don't know if he'll overcome it in any market now. I don't know. Even if he goes to the worst market in the NBA, can he overcome it because of Twitter? And no matter where he is, people are going to be watching to see if anything changed, to see how he played. I don't know. Could his NBA career be done? I mean, at this point, I guess I wouldn't even be surprised. Let's take the next one.
My idea about Ben Simmons is I feel like Ben Simmons is embarrassed that how he played as a Sixer, and by him being so embarrassed that when Doc Rivers said what he said and Embiid said what he said, it just put him in a mind state that he's too embarrassed to come back and play for Philly. I feel like he's ashamed about how he played, what he did, and his shame was brought to more light by his peers, and now he's heavily criticized by the fans. So now he don't want to come here and play at all, and he wants to move on to start somewhere else because he's ashamed to get back on this court with Philadelphia.
You're absolutely right. You nailed it. And I guess I'll say this. He was never told the truth growing up. He was never told what needed to happen, what needed to change, how you had to adapt. And if he was told, it was never enforced by anyone, whether it was coaches, family, a father, anyone. So you're right. When Doc says something, when Joel, and you know what? I can't get over the Joel thing. Like, sure, should Doc Rivers say, I don't know? Probably not. Saying I don't know might have not have been the best answer in the world, but it shouldn't also relate to where we're at now, which is just an obnoxious level where most athletes, I would imagine, would say, especially with the respect a guy like Doc, be like, you know, I'm going to show Doc. I love Doc. I love Doc to death. He's very respected in this league. I'm going to have to show him. I'm going to have to prove him if that's the case. If he doesn't think I can, well, then guess what? I'm going to prove it to him, you know, in like a competitive fire type of way. But the whole Joel thing that people keep saying that Joel called him out and threw him under the bus, he literally put on display 7 or 8 different plays in sequence. He just said what happened. What was the turning point of the game? Well, this happened, that happened, this happened, this happened, and that happened. He went through an entire sequence of maybe 5 different possessions, 4 different possessions. It started, that started it where there was a missed dunk where we went to the free throw line. Instead, we hit 1. Then I had a turnover. I mean, he talked about the entire end of the game. That's all he did was ask what happened, what was the turning point, and he gave the turning point. That's not throwing anyone under the bus. It's just talking about the game and what happened. That's your job. You get asked questions, you answer questions about what happened at the end of the game. All he did was bring up what happened at the end of the game. And I keep going back and forth in my head about all this. The craziest, wild concept that I can't wrap my head around is we are where we are today because of what? An NBA player. I mean, seriously, it's as simple as this. An NBA player won't shoot a basketball. It's crazy. It's crazy. And I'll leave you there. As the Sixers lose their 4th straight, and they haven't had a couple days off, though, in a while. So at least, here's your positive. They have off Monday, Tuesday. No. Sunday, Monday, they play Tuesday. So they have 2 full days off here before they get back into action. Gives them a little bit of time to cool down and hit the reset button. There's your positive. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Sports Talk with Brodes, and I will see you next time.